Well, it's not a success story, but it is an object lesson in the power of failure to animate a movement. Here to tell us about his latest book, When We Tried to Save the Castle, is author, educator, and JaxPsychoGeo blogger Tim Gilmore. Good morning, Tim.
Hey, and thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. And wow, so this is book 25.
It is.
You make the rest of the world feel just straight up lazy.
Oh, I'm just obsessive.
You are
Mm-hmm.
obsessive and
Mm-hmm.
to our benefit. So
Oh, thank you.
this book is even out of all the books you've done, you say is something special. It is a book that focuses on a particular building, but as all of your stories do, tells a much broader, deeper, and wider story. So, first of all, what is Lomax Castle?
Yeah. Lomax Castle was a big house on Lomax Street at the riverfront that was demolished 50 years ago. It was 3 stories, had a tower on one end and a widow's walk on the top. And so, you might wonder, why would somebody write a book about a house that was demolished 50 years ago? It's really symbolic in a lot of different ways of how different lives move through a house, how a house can represent a city and neighborhood, a history, and as you said, it helped spark the historic preservation movement in Jacksonville.
And
It's
so,
really an incredible story.
this is a house that is in Riverside, and
Yes.
it was one of many, many homes on
Hmm.
something kind of known as the Row in Riverside, a very,
Right.
um, you know, wealthy homes,
Hmm.
big homes,
Hmm.
very architecturally diverse
Hmm.
homes.
Hmm. Yeah, lots of cities had something, variously called a millionaire's row or something like that. In Jacksonville, it was called the Row, and it was more than 50 of these enormous houses that lined Riverside Avenue. This house was built in the 1890s in the Queen Anne style, which meant that it was asymmetrical, and Queen Anne's were really showy kinds of houses. It had that tower that nobody could forget if they saw it, and really, became symbolic of a number of different time periods, symbolic of the time when it was built in the 1890s and the wealth that was establishing itself and showing itself off in the city. But as times changed, it also became really symbolic of the late 1960s and the early 1970s, when hippies were renting out this 3-story house for about $100 a month, and two of them started Edge City, the boutique. It started as a head shop, still there in Five Points, and there's just all kinds of incredible stories, wild stories about life in the castle in that time period. So really symbolic in very different kinds of eras.
Yeah, and so the era where that was occupied by the hippies,
Hmm.
there were other homes in that area, these magnificent homes. It's hard to kind
Yeah.
of believe, but,
Right.
this area went into decline.
Yeah.
A lot of homes were demolished, and then the homes that remained were very often a little bit, like, run by slumlords,
Yeah.
as was the castle.
That's right. Yeah. I often find it. I'm fascinated by cities and how cities grow and change. And I teach at FSCJ, and I've often been surprised at how little most of us understand why our cities are shaped the way they are. And so much of Jacksonville is similar to what happened in cities all across the country after World War II. There was white flight, there was redlining, there was the creation of the interstate system and new, often deed restricted areas outside of the former city limits, and people fled neighborhoods like Springfield and Riverside, and so that time period saw lots of incredible houses demolished or converted into lawyers and doctors' offices. Demolished for parking lots, demolished for condo towers, which is the case with the Lomax Castle. And so there was, as a matter of fact, there was a physician who lived in another castle around houses called castles around the corner from Lomax, that house is still there, the Leon Cheek House, which was built by Leon Cheek of Cheek Neal Coffee, which later became Maxwell House. And this physician, his name was Emmett Ferguson. And he bought old properties all over Riverside, and if he could rent them out and make money that way, he certainly did. But if it looked more profitable to tear them down, have them torn down, and let developers do something else there, he certainly was going to do that too. He made lots of enemies for that reason. I found some interesting old quotes both about him and from him. One of them, he said, "All I do is make people mad,"
Right.
because of the kinds of changes that.
Not just because he was a proctologist by profession.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that, but that's true. But yeah, so he owned the Lomax Castle, and people who could live in houses like this in the 1960s and 70s, a lot of times would never have been able to live in houses like this before. And this was the case elsewhere on Riverside Avenue with the greenhouse and the gray house where, Leonard Skinner members lived, and the Allman Brothers Band
Right.
got their start.
Some rock and roll history is rooted in that same
That's right.
period.
That's right.
And so you talk about the various lives that moved through there, herpetologist from the zoo that lived there. So there was all these snake stories. There was stories of hauntings. But in terms of the fate of the castle itself, it was bought. It was going to be moved and saved, and it wasn't saved.
Yeah, this is so, I knew about the house, but what really caught my eye and started this whole, I always think of the stories that I got myself into as rabbit holes. And what started this one is that I saw a Jacksonville Journal story from 1974. I was looking for something else, and I saw this, where someone was taking the house apart a piece at a time. And he planned to move it all to Middleburg, just he and his wife, his poor wife, and rebuild the house in Middleburg. And I thought, what in the world? This is the kind of thing, like if you succeeded at doing that, people would call it heroic and say you were a mad genius or something. And if perhaps inevitably it did not succeed, then
no surprise.
Yeah, but this was 1974. The house was already condemned to be demolished at that point, and Riverside Avondale Preservation had started earlier in the year. And some of the earliest rap newsletters were saying, help save the castle, and calling for neighborhood residents to come together.
And the movement was in many ways animated further by the fact that they weren't able to save the castle.
That's true. Yeah, it's really interesting to me. Also, I like the way you pitched it at the start about failures that prompt progress somehow. They were not able to save it, and some of the early pamphlets said, things like a neighborhood can be beautiful, and had a picture of the castle, when it's all together, and then another picture of it when it's 2/3 demolished, and then underneath it says, unless no one cares. And so of course, RAP started that year, but Springfield Preservation and Restoration started, a little bit later that decade, and other organizations around the city. And of course, this is something that was happening in cities all over the country in response to what had happened to these historic neighborhoods.
The book is called When We Tried to Save the Castle. It has a foreword by Wayne Wood, who is a renowned historian and architectural historian in his own right, because he was very instrumental in that formation of Riverside Avondale. Right. And there is a book launch on Thursday, December 11th at 6 p.m. I believe there is just a little bit of room left, so people do need to RSVP.
Yes, so it's at Happy Medium Books and Cafe, and I think as of this morning it was full, but Dana is going to bump up the cap a little bit. So I talked to her about that, and Happy Medium is this wonderful bookstore and cafe in the middle of Riverside that is really supportive of the literary community here in Jacksonville.
And a great place to have the official book launch.
Yeah, I'm
Tim Gilmore, congratulations. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Ann.